Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Tuesday, November 19th. It's the day of the college football rankings. Those are going to come out. The new set is going to come out. We're going to see where Notre Dame is ranked. They move up to number 6 in the AP poll yesterday. Spoiler alert, Jamie and I are going to release our own, and we both have Notre Dame higher than that, so that's going to be interesting. We do have some disagreements with the rest of the top 12, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to wrap up Virginia and everything we saw against Virginia and, just some thoughts that we had. And then we're going to go over your questions and comments and just talk general college football as always. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, of course, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whenever it is, we are going to go live. We hope everyone enjoyed Power Hour going live for the first time yesterday. I think that was a good time, Jamie. I think
that was great. Great job, Greg, on the production.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think everyone enjoyed it. So you're going to want to subscribe to our channel for that too. So that's going to be every Monday from now on. We're gonna bring that live. Right. I think it's a long time coming, and it was a good idea from Mike to do that. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing. Ge Wang has a special coming up for Black Friday. After this weekend's game, he's going to match percentage-wise however much Notre Dame points. That's kind of how much the discount is going to be. If Notre Dame scores 30 points, 30% up, 30% off. 45 points, 45% off, and on and on and on. So on all online items not eligible for gift cards. So bomber jackets, dress shirts, bamboo dress shirts, suits, tuxedos, anything you're looking for. Ge Wang will get you set up. He's been doing it for over a decade. He's a Notre Dame alum. He dresses up the Notre Dame football team on the player walk. And all things of that nature, right? And if you look at like these guys are getting married and they're getting married in ESQ clothing, right? They're getting married in ESQ tuxedos. It's very good stuff. So go head over to esqclothing.com, 20% off or however much percent off of however many Notre Dame points. Starts on Sunday. It'll go for the rest of the week. So check that out. Jamie, how you doing today? People are talking about the flip of Ivan Taylor from Michigan over to Alabama. Not shocking at all if you've been following that a little bit. And, it's just the nature of recruiting. A couple of things. Justin Thurman left the class, running back. He left the class and now he is committed to Kansas. So it looks like it's just going to be Nolan James at running back. Jamie, is that what we're kind of thinking here? They're not going to make any more moves at running back. They're just going to stay with Nolan James and go with that.
That's what it seems like. Unless, someone I guess could kind of pop out of nowhere, but I doubt it unless there's like an old name that kind of pops up. Probably unlikely. So I think that's kind of. I don't really know if they needed to take 2 because if you think about it, there's a chance everybody comes back next year plus Jabron Payne.
Mm-hmm. And not just that, but Young and Williams look like hits. So
yeah, for sure. Like these guys are going to want to have bigger roles, and to take 2 guys, and then it's going to be tough for those guys. Just like in terms of the logjam, I think it makes sense to like take 1. And the other thing is that if you ever get into a situation where you need like depth at running back, that's a spot in the portal where you can always add somebody.
You made a great point yesterday about him being a scheme fit ahead of like Anderson and Thurman, like they just didn't seem like scheme fits to me, and that was just my impression, right? Like he fits just like what Notre Dame wants, what they all kind of have. Like they all have like really good feet, and those 2 were just like straight ahead guys, and it's like they don't really fit what Notre Dame's trying to do at running back, and so it makes a lot more sense there. The question Greg Wasserman asked, how many players are currently in the 2025 class? Notre Dame's sitting at 23. So they could add a few, right? I think they want to add Antoine Parham at wide receiver. They want to add Derek Meadows at wide receiver. They want to add Madden Faremo. And they want to add Nathaniel Lewis-Boateng, although it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But they want to add at least 3 more there. So they want to get to 26. And I think that would be good, right? I think that's a good number for them, especially adding the types of wide receivers they're going at would be a pretty big deal. The Shark 83. So this has kind of come up in the last couple of days. Is Watts putting up better numbers than Kyle Hamilton did? Yes, just Watts never could knock on wood. He hasn't been out of the lineup for any amount of time since he's basically entered the lineup. Whenever Notre Dame's had a game, he's been available. Kyle Hamilton got hurt a bunch, so from a numbers standpoint, like he's definitely doing better. There's been a lot of, I tweeted out after the game, like, no one's been better at Notre Dame, right, than Xavier Watts has, just from a numbers standpoint, a production standpoint. And a lot of people were kind of like, well, like, I thought Kyle Hamilton was your boy. And it has nothing to do with that. First of all, I worded it specifically kind of for that reason, is like, no one's been better. Like, if you were to ask me, like, I would always take Kyle Hamilton over everyone, just because, just from a completely objective, like, the things that he can do. Like, he is more in the running game as like a game record, like closer to line of scrimmage. Like, he is just more effective than anyone has ever been at Notre Dame. And that's just the nature of his physical attributes, like, you can't get away from it. He's just such a monster. Honestly, like, I think about all the time, like, good, why could not Kyle Hamilton have played in a defense like this one, where he just would have been unbelievable. I mean, the start of things, the things that he could do are just amazing. But I also, like, Xavier Watts is at Notre Dame, and I think that I am in such awe of him, because it's so difficult to go from like the chances of you being brought in as a wide receiver, it not working out, and then people forget, like, they moved him to defense because Kyle Hamilton got hurt in 2021. Like, that's why they moved him over. It's like, well, we need people, we need bodies. They moved him over for him to go from that to what he is today. The chances of that happening are very not good. Just just the odds of it, right? Like, oh, there was a defensive player of the year on our scout team offense. Like, that's just not a thing. What he's been able to do, the way he's been able to develop, it's just amazing, and it's a credit to him. It's a credit to the staff. And so, like, I don't want to do this thing where it's like, oh, Kyle Hamilton or Xavier Watts, like, they're both amazing. They were both incredible, and Kyle for different reasons, and Xavier Watts for different reasons. So, look, I'm not going to nitpick one over the other. I'm just going to celebrate the fact that, man, these are two of the best safeties that have ever come through the program, and that's great. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever, people can have their fun arguments, whatever, and I think people have like a weird. There's people who have misguided views on Hamilton because he missed that end of the 2021 season, and some people think that he like opted out of it, but it was like, no, he was hurt, like he couldn't come back, like even like maybe he would have tried if there was a playoff, just to try in a playoff, but he was not healthy enough to come back. Like that was 100% real. Like it was a real injury. He was not ready to come back. And I think his role in the defense, in that defense, one, like you said, it's a different defense, but they asked him to do so much more. Not that, I mean, they asked Watts to do a lot, but man, Hamilton, he had got asked to do everything. And I also think it's different too, because you're looking at like you said, Watts' circumstances and when he moved over. And Kyle Hamilton was like immediate impact, like true freshman, 3-and-out player, like basically 2.5 and out, because he got hurt for the second half of of his third season, right? So it's different. You can't really compare. Just like if you looked at like Harrison Smith's going to the Hall of Fame. He's going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And go and watch like his last 2 years at Notre Dame, and the guy was phenomenal. And even in the last year where he didn't, I mean, he had like the 7 picks in his his second to last year,
Yeah,
but
his
he was
junior.
just as good or better in his last year, right? And it's like one of those things where you can say like, oh man, I think Hamilton's better than Smith, and then Watts is better than them all, and yeah, you can argue, and that's fun. That's part of being a fan, is like arguing that kind of thing. But I think you look at it and you're like, man, Notre Dame's had some pretty great safeties in the last you know decade plus. It's been pretty nice, and then obviously to have Kyle Hamilton and then follow that up with Xavier Watts, and then obviously you look at Adon Schuler's kind of having a pretty good
Yeah.
start to his career
Yeah.
too. So they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, it's working out. Alohi Gilman as well. I mean, he's like a
Yes, should
starter.
not be forget. Yes,
He's
definitely
a
deserves
starter
to
for the
be
Chargers.
mentioned. Yeah,
He just got extended, right? So
yeah,
that works out. Like Julian
great
Love
player.
is a safety now, but
Yeah,
he obviously didn't play safety in college, but he's a safety now. He got another extension, right? So like these are starters, like frontline players in the NFL. So Notre Dame's doing well at the safety position. We love to see that. We love to see Notre Dame thriving in that way. Jacob Paulus, we're talking a little bit recruiting here, and that's fine. Is Jalen Wiggins still a possibility? UF is keeping Napier. So I believe so. Jamie, do you have any intel on this?
I don't have any other intel than what we got from after the visit, that Notre Dame was in a good spot for him, and that, I mean, obviously, I believe that he went and was at the UF game, and obviously they beat Brian Kelly this week, and that helps them that Napier is still there. But I mean, I think you'll just wait and see. It's always tough to get it. I think if they're going to get it, it's probably going to be like right towards the end. Like they'll flip them right towards the end. I doubt it'll kind of, happen soon if that were the case, right? Because there wasn't any rumblings that it was going to happen like right away
Yeah.
or anything.
Yeah. So we'll just continue to monitor. Like that was always going to be kind of like going down to the wire. Now it's coming close. Early signing days, pretty close. So we're going to have some clarity on that. We're going to have some clarity on Faremo. We're going to have some clarity on Meadows as well. Because it's, I think December 4th is when signing day is. That's a couple weeks away. So we're going to have to check out irishsportsdaily.com and what Matt and Jamie, or not Matt and Jamie, Matt and Christian have for us. Tyler Borgman says Greg's starting the campaign for the longtime favorite team, the Ravens, to draft Xavier Watts. Listen, let's manifest it, right? I think the Ravens are going to have to extend Kyle soon, and then you're going to want another safety on a rookie deal, right? Get X in there. Let's do it. Let's have the best safety tandem in the NFL at Ravens. So that's the deal. So little recruiting hour, little safety talk. Let's go over to our top 12 here, Jamie. So this is my top 12. Okay, this is what I have coming down the pike on the rankings. I've got Oregon at 1, Ohio State at 2. I've got Bama at 3. Mostly because I can't stand for Texas being at 3 anymore. I don't want to see it like that. I was not impressed with their performance this weekend, right? So I didn't want them to be at 3 anymore. So I'm going to put Bama there at 3. I got Texas at 4, Notre Dame at 5, Ole Miss at 6. I put Ole Miss ahead of Georgia because they just whooped them, like multiple touchdown victory. So I got to put Ole Miss above. I get Indiana at 8. To me, it's like, look, it's a placeholder, right? If they beat Ohio State, they're flying up the board. If they lose to Ohio State, they're dropping down the board. That's just the way it is. I got to put them over Penn State because I think they're unbecoming. And you know how I feel about Penn State. I don't like them at 4, but I do think like they're a playoff team, right? They should be in the top 12. So that's where I have Penn State. I got Tennessee at 10. SMU at 11 ahead of Miami. Just because I think SMU has some better wins, and they have a loss. It's not the greatest loss anymore because BYU's out because they just lost. And the way I see BYU is like I view it like they've lost 2 games in a row, in my opinion, because I think the Utah game, like that's a loss, in my mind, And so like you went and lost this game to bad Kansas. That's 2 times where you can have one little, it's a rivalry game or whatever. All right, fine. You win on a technicality. All right. This next one though, you drop another one to Kansas who isn't very good. You're gone. You're out of here. You're not real. And I got Boise State at 12 ahead of Texas A&M. Texas A&M has better wins, right? I just think I'm giving Boise State a lot of credit for the way they played at Oregon, frankly, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit for that, but that's kind of where I'm at. Jamie, talk us over your rankings here. This is Jamie's top 12. Talk us over, and then we'll have a powwow about the whole thing.
Well, I think Oregon, Ohio State, I think we don't even really need to get into it. We kind of know that they're just the fact that the other game was so close. Like, I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, if Ohio State had won that game in the same way that Oregon won it, you just flip-flop them. They'd be 1-2. And I just think if I'm looking at those teams objectively and just looking at their talent and how they've played for most of the season, they probably deserve to be there. Indiana, yes, it's 3. Have they played a tough schedule? No, they haven't, right? But I also see it as very much a placeholder. And also, they're going to get a chance to play Ohio State. And guess what? If they get the break speed off of them, I mean, they're going to drop huge. And that's just what it's going to be. But there is something to say for being undefeated. And I understand they did have like a really bad second half against Michigan. And, that's not great. But I also don't want to bang on a team that is pretty much like, whooped everyone they played all year. And I understand it's the schedule isn't good, but they've won every game. And so I'm just giving it to them until it happens where, because the thing is too, is like, you're going to judge them based on this Ohio State game, based on if they win the game, if the game's close, if the game's not close, how they're competitive they are, right? Like all of that kind of stuff too, right? And I think what Ryan brings up the point too, IU is ND since week 3. It's kind of what it is. It's kind of what it is, what they've been, right? Except for minus that one Michigan game. Now, if they had a bunch of games like that where they were winning like that, then I think I'd view it a little bit different. Texas, I have there just basically because they're the only one-loss team in the SEC, and I couldn't put Notre Dame above them, even though Texas A&M, I think individually, Texas A&M is a better win than when Texas has. Obviously, Texas is going to play Texas A&M at the end of the season, and I just think if you look at Texas, though, they're only lost to Georgia, and if you look at the totality of their schedule, it is a much tougher schedule than Notre Dame, just the totality of it, right? So
you got to pay a price for losing in Northern Illinois.
You have to.
You got to pay a price.
You have to. If one team's one loss is Georgia, and then they have a tougher schedule just overall, I think that team, it's fair to give them a boost. That right. Alabama to me is the top 2-loss team, and I know you can say like, man, it's going to be crazy difficult to rank these 2-loss teams. I just think they've looked the best out of those teams. So, and out of most recently, and if you look at all like comparables in terms of playing those games and stuff like that too, they whooped LSU in a way that no one really had up until that point. So, and then obviously like Ole Miss lost, and there's just a lot there. Like Georgia, I just think they get the boost. Obviously, you beat Tennessee straight up. You get that boost because of that. And they're so close with Alabama in that game. Obviously, that's a game that could have went either way. So that's the way I kind of feel about that. I mean, could you argue that Ole Miss beat Georgia and then whatever? Yes, totally. But I just think all of that, it's just like, I don't know how you're going to rank it. It's just it's going to hopefully work itself out with some of this. Penn State, I just put there in the middle at 8, simply because they're that one loss team. Now, I think Penn State could lose to Minnesota. I think that's like definitely on the docket. Like that is, I'm monitoring that for sure. Minnesota's got a really good defense. That's going to be on the road. I mean, I haven't looked at the temperature, but I assume it's going to be cold as heck in Minnesota for that game. So that's going to be, I'm going to take a look at where, obviously how that game goes and stuff too. I think Penn State, I don't really see them. To me, 8 is as high as they can get, is what I kind of look at for Penn State. I don't see them be able to move up. They're not going to get any wins that will move them up in the rest of the time. And no one else that they've beaten has done enough to kind of, make them move up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you said, like you said, if you have Tennessee and Ole Miss above them, that's fine. If you have
So
Ole Miss,
I'll tell you exactly why I do. I'll tell you exactly why, because I don't think they should get a home game.
Yeah.
Like you had the one big game against Ohio State at home and you lost. So you need to go on the road now. You need to go on the road and play a playoff team. That's how I see it.
Yeah. That's fair. And I don't have any problem with that. I will say too, when it comes to Tennessee and Ole Miss, I just think it's like, I really just kind of made it down to Ole Miss is Georgia. I mean, you could say, well, they beat Georgia and then they lost to Georgia. Really, I just took a look at like they lost to Kentucky at home. Yeah, that's kind of where it is, right? So that's why I banged them there. And then look at all these other teams and how they've done against LSU, and they lost to LSU. And I know it's a close game, but still. So that's why. Do I think objectively Ole Miss is a better team? I think Ole Miss might actually be the second best team in the SEC, or next to Alabama. If I was going to say, just looking at it, I would say Alabama, I think, is the best or teams that you wouldn't want to play. Alabama, then Ole Miss, right? But just based on those losses, who they lost to and those games, that's kind of why I have them there. Miami, I just, whatever. It's the one loss. Obviously it wasn't a great loss, but their offense is awesome. It really is. Yeah. Cam Ward is awesome. They should be in any game because of that for the most part. And I just think because I didn't want to put SMU above here because I thought BYU deserved to be lower and out, and they lost to BYU.
It really hurts. It really hurts them. I will admit, like the losing to BYU now hurts because BYU doesn't. It's just like everything goes down.
And so that's kind of why I did it. But obviously, that's going to get decided. There's only going to be one ACC team, obviously. And then A&M, I have there at 12, just because I just think they have better. They've got, first of all, a way tougher schedule than Boise. And really, Boise, if you look at it, kind of the only thing they have on the resume is like, well, they played Oregon close. Really, right? And obviously, the running back is a stud and might win the Heisman. But like, they played a tight game, this weekend with San Jose State. I think a lot of these teams beat the brakes off, San Jose State. And so I just, if I'm being realistic about it, and basically, if I'm going to bang on some of these other teams for who they played, I mean, they played nobody.
Let me ask you this about Texas A&M, because their two best wins are Missouri, they destroyed him.
Yeah, and LSU.
And at the time, the Missouri was ranked 9th at the time. I think people kind of thought, like, they're not Missouri. Like, people thought at the time. I think the LSU game was a legitimate, like, show me game, and they did. And I think the A&M beating them the way they did, especially in the second half, I think that kind of started their downslide, LSU's downslide, like that's when LSU started to just kind of unravel. And it's I think LSU much different than Missouri. Like how do you credit the win for Texas A&M versus like, Florida beating LSU now to go to, LSU 6-4 now. Whereas like the other that was their LSU second loss against LSU was like, they could still be SEC championship game type thing. Like that
At
was a
that time,
big game. Yeah,
yeah.
that was a big game. And so like, do you give them like would you give them more credit than say like would you give A&M more credit for their win versus say Alabama, who had like, okay, now LSU, like they had 2 losses already and they were already in big trouble, like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
the order that happened, like would you give A&M more credit for it than Bama? Like how much credit do you give Bama for it now that, because people look at Bama and myself included, man, they destroyed LSU, well, it's like, well, now LSU 6-4. So like
Yeah.
how do you view that in your mind?
Well, I view it the big thing is they did it Alabama did that at LSU's home stadium. That's what
Correct.
makes
Yes. Good
that
point.
like way more impressive.
Uh-huh.
Like
And
that's one of those.
it was like, because LSU was, I don't want to say in control in the first half against Texas A&M, but they were winning.
Yeah. I mean, they were they were in a good position. Like you would have picked them if you probably looked at game on paper and look at like what the odds of them winning at that time. It was probably like up here in the first half and then dropped way down in the second half. So I think that's probably where you look at that Alabama game and Alabama was like this the whole game.
Yeah.
Like they were just above. So that's the way I would kind of look at it, the home and road part of it. I mean, I definitely think that A&M, which, kind of being a top 12, it actually means nothing because you're not actually going to be in the top 12 because
Right.
you're going to be out. So but I think they're, right on the fringe there anyways. And I wouldn't, quibble if someone had, other teams above them. And I think there's a reason why there's separation between them and the other 2 lost teams. Those other teams have had harder schedules and they've had better wins. The thing is too, is that like A&M had a chance to prove it and beat Notre Dame in week 1. And I understand it's week 1 and all that, but it was, tie game and they got whooped in the 4th quarter. So at home.
Yeah.
So I know it's week 1 and all that, but they were, styling after making plays at the line of scrimmage and they were talking a lot of stuff and they got ran on at the end of the game and they got beat. Right. And they, that was, basically like, I think it says a lot. Like Mike Elko was like, run the effing ball, waving the white flag at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Like stop dropping back our quarterback. You're going to get hurt.
He's gonna get killed.
Yeah.
So it was a convincing win. It was a convincing win. Like it was tight the whole game, and then it became convincing. So I just think that was their kind of like opportunity to kind of boost up. They'll get this other opportunity. They're going to play Texas to end the season, and if they win that game, guess what? They're going to the playoff. They're going to be in, no matter what happens with SEC related, right? So, that'll kind of work itself out. But man, it is crazy how many like 2 lost teams there are in the SEC this year. And I actually think that South Carolina, it's kind of a shame that South Carolina has 3 losses because I think because there's too many 2-loss SEC teams and the way that, if Notre Dame wins out and then, if Penn State wins out, Ohio State wins out, or like, Oregon, Ohio State, whatever, they just like nix each other out kind of thing. How are they? South Carolina just won't be able to get in. But I actually, when you watch them, I think they're better than a lot of teams. Obviously, they took it to Texas A&M in that game. And man, I think they're like a dangerous team. Like they're a team that if they snuck in somehow, I don't think it's possible for them to do it. But if they did, that's a team I don't think teams would want to play.
Yeah. I mean, you got that D line, right? Then
Yeah.
anytime
Oh
you got
yeah.
the
It's
D line like
nasty.
that, it's just like it just destroys everything you want to do. Listen, win the games, like everyone's kind of, and the thing is like they did take it to Texas A&M. It was kind of similar to the way Texas A&M extended against LSU, though. Like it was a close game. Texas A&M was winning at a point in the first half, so like they took it to them, but it wasn't like the Bama LSU game where it was just
No.
complete evisceration right
Yeah,
away.
they pulled away from them.
Yeah, yeah. So look, I mean, I agree with you. Like South Carolina looks like a real good team. But like you lose 3 times, that's tough.
I mean, you have to pay a price for it.
Yeah,
And
just
maybe it'd
what
be
it is.
different too if I'm not sure who else South Carolina has on their schedule left in the SEC. I don't even know if they have an SEC game left. They might only have like a, you know, playing a, one of those typical SEC second last game of the seasons
Yeah,
versus a nobody, and then playing Clemson. But
they've
it hurts
got
them.
Wofford. They've got Wofford
They got
next.
Wofford. Yeah. So there you go. Right. So, and obviously they're going to, whatever, beat Wofford. And then it sucks for them that Clemson, because if Clemson was one loss Clemson and then they whipped them, then it's all of a sudden like, I'm not saying they would get in with the 3 losses, but maybe they make it a conversation. But Clemson is just, I think they're fraud. So it's just,
Yeah,
and
they're not that
they
good.
got whipped so bad by Georgia in that first game that I think they had to win out the rest of the way to kind of convince it. And that's just kind of where they're at. I wanted to ask you though, Greg, about um, obviously the Big 12 seems pretty wide open in terms of like, I think people kind of were like, you hope BYU just wins out. So then it's like they're the undefeated team and they get in or
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
But Colorado definitely is in the mix. I mean, Arizona State
Yeah,
is in the mix. Do I think these teams could really beat, you know, some of the other teams above them? Only if the other teams give their like C game and their gap and A game. I think
right.
that's kind of where it's at. But I think they're kind of Colorado's at least interesting. And I mean, I'll give that to Dion because I mean, believe me, I root for them to lose. I'm not I'm not a fan
Hmm.
of Deion Sanders and all that kind of pomp and circumstance that he's done there. But I mean, Shadur's a baller,
He's very good.
and Travis Hunter is a damn good player, man. Like he might win the Heisman and he might deserve it. And they got a bunch of other wideouts that like can cook guys.
Like the Jimmy
Um,
Horn is like a dude. Like he's real
yeah,
fast. He's got some good stuff.
that's the thing is that it's what kind of makes them if it was like a different kind of thing where it could kind of work out this way, um, it would be kind of interesting. Just a matchups, just a styles thing for a Miami Colorado game
Oh my god,
where
it
I
would
think
be.
it'd be like 50, it might be like 60. Like
Yeah, it
it
would be
would
like
get up there.
58-55. I
Yeah.
think the thing is, like, you look at Colorado, they played one Big Ten team and they just got absolutely dominated. I mean, they just
Yes.
got completely
And not even a good Big
eviscerated.
Ten team. Yeah.
No, that's what I mean. Like, it's Nebraska, and it just they kicked their butt. You couldn't block them, right? And so, like, I think all those Big 12 teams, like Kansas State, Arizona State, Colorado, BYU, like they're just all kind of hiding in their conference. I mean, because who did Colorado have the Hail Mary against?
Oh man. Uh who was that against? I just totally forgot. I just blanked on it.
I know it wasn't like a great team or anything, and it was like
They've won okay, that's the other thing about Colorado, that's why I'm like, they're very smoke and mirrors in terms of what they've actually done. Like they've played a lot of close games. A
yeah,
lot.
yeah. And look at you.
Um,
Look, they pulled it out, right? Like it's good. You win the Hail Mary.
yeah, you
Like
win those
you win
games,
on a Hail
cool.
Mary, but it's like it's a very low. Like you're on the way to losing, and you end up winning. But then it's like you also dropped the game against Nebraska. You dropped the game against Kansas State, and it's like I don't want to. I don't want to hate on them too much, but I also don't want to like pretend that they're like like a contender or anything.
I
I
think it
just
was
don't.
Baylor. I think it was Baylor.
Baylor, that's right. And
Yeah.
Baylor's not good, right? They're
Baylor's
not a
not
good
good.
football team. So look, you're on the way to losing, and you end up winning the game, and that's great. I do think it's funny how like it's it's funny how Shadur was talking about they don't go into the game trying to get the Heisman to Travis Hunter, and you're running a reverse supposed to be reverse pass on first and goal up 42-24 in the fourth quarter with him. Like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to do then? Like
Yeah.
you're trying to get him a throwing touchdown. Like, obviously, you're trying to juice his numbers, which is fine. I don't have a problem with it. I just thought it was funny. Look, Shadur is great. He is very good. Travis Hunter is very good. Like, take nothing away from those guys. But the rest of it, I don't think they have the horses. So, and but that's not just them. I think that's the whole conference, right? And so, that's gonna be that's just the deal. I don't give them a ton of credit for as a like a national contender.
None of the Big 12 teams
Yeah.
are there's zero any of those teams have any chance at actually um doing anything in the CFB. Like, could they have one Cinderella game? Yeah, it's possible, but that's it.
Mhm.
That is, and it's greater. There's a much greater chance that they get destroyed
Yeah.
by somebody.
Yeah.
And really, if you think about it, uh, there's a good chance that Boise could get that 4 seed eventually over that
Hmm.
team
End
because
up being the 12th.
yeah, that could happen, right? So if you get the 12 and you're playing, the 5, and then like, who would have been your 5 if they did it? I guess that would be Bama, right? As it
Hmm.
stands right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, no, I'm
It would be.
sorry.
It
It
would
would
be
be a
very.
bloodbath. It would be a
Yeah.
bloodbath. It's going to be horrible. So, no.
Especially at Bama. Oof.
Yeah.
That would
I
be.
mean, Chris Schreiber mentioned too, like, Oklahoma would have been, yes, Oklahoma would have been a top 3 team in the Big 12 this year. They do, Oklahoma actually played just a super, super tough schedule. Not that they're good or anything like that, but they had a defense that they probably have 1 or 2 losses in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And they would, even with all their quarterback problems, um, because they also just have more talent than just a lot of those teams. And if you just look at it from a straight talent perspective, there's just not a ton of talent in the Big 12 comparatively, which is also why Colorado can do what they do, because they have 2 guys who are going to be first round picks on their offense, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know how like Horn is viewed or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe he might be another guy. I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I haven't really looked at it deep enough, but um, they got a ton of talent. So that how many other first round picks are there in the Big 12 period?
Mhm.
Maybe 2 or 3, probably. Maybe
Yeah.
less. I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Chris Schreiber says you have to use the same logic as Notre Dame with NIU. Colorado isn't the same team they were in week 2. Um, Fine, but they also lost another time after that, and they had the Hail Mary.
yeah.
Like you're on the way to losing multiple times since the Nebraska loss. So that's why I don't like it, again, I'm not trying to say they're terrible. They're not. I'm just saying it's a different caliber. There's just a totally different it's a different conversation, right? Like the what they're doing in the Big 12 vis-a-vis like the rest of the top 12 to me is just those other are a step above, right? It's just a completely different level. That's what you get in the Big Ten and SEC, and the types of teams that Notre Dame is playing. I mean, Notre Dame's playing. Look, to their credit, right? Like they're playing SEC type teams. They're playing Big Ten teams, and Colorado played one and they got dog walked. So it's just a different caliber. You want a different caliber. And if you want a different caliber in your media company, and you go to VSR Media, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Jamie, let's talk.
I just wanted to because Coach Humph brought up this point about, the mega conferences and why these teams wouldn't drop down. It's exactly why Vanderbilt never dropped out of the SEC. I mean, they could have dropped and went to, an easier conference and won. All these teams can drop and do that if they want. But the goal isn't wins and losses. That for a lot of these teams, it's not. The goal is money.
Yeah.
And it's a lot less money playing in those other leagues. And I think that's been, completely obvious for a long time. That's just what it's about. And also too, Oklahoma, believe me, all of the people who put money into the Oklahoma program, because it is one of the blue bloods in terms of like the money generated into the program, its history, all of this kind of stuff. They think they should beat Alabama and Georgia, and they should be doing all these things. So whenever Brent Venables gets fired, they're going to spend a ton of money on the next coach to try to be that next guy. They're not going to be like, well, hey, let's keep Brent Venables and drop down the Big 12. That'll never happen. That's just not where things are going. And it's really not the goal of these teams. And because they don't want to just make the playoff either. They want to win it.
Yeah.
So in order to win it, they got to spend, which means they got to get more revenue in. And that's kind of where you're stuck with it.
Yeah. Regarding Notre Dame, I think on Power Hour, Jamie, you made a really good point. Where there was a question about NIU and Marcus Freeman is bringing up that game to the team over and over again. And you made a point that it's kind of time to not do that anymore. Like it's time to move on. Like I think that had utility when you're playing, Stanford, and you're playing teams like Georgia Tech.
One win Florida State.
Yeah, like you're clear. Like don't slip up here, right? We're taking this seriously. You don't blow it because you're going to slip up against one of these teams. Notre Dame's in winning time now. Like you're in peak. Like we're trying to go do something, right? Like, of course, we're not going to let down. We're talking about peaking as a team, as a program, heading into the playoffs, right? Like you have undefeated Army in your next game. Like let's play big time football, right? You have your rival USC to get into the playoff. Let's play big time football. It's not about slipping up anymore. It's about thriving now. I thought you made a good point there. I wanted to highlight that because I thought that was astute and the correct way to look at it. As far as peaking, we talked a lot yesterday. There was a long conversation about like wide receivers and football. And, I think both of us have been pretty hard on Bo Collins. And I want to give a little bit of kind of context into why I'm more down on that than, like, say, Jordan Faison, right? Because I think, it's one thing to have drops or whatever it might be. Faison's dropped the ball at a higher rate than Collins has throughout the year. I think that the big thing for me is that there are little things being missed too that, like, I remember when I played, all I know is that when I see some of this stuff happen, I think to myself, like, man, if I in tape, in film, you would get killed for this. And sometimes it's like it's not the obvious thing. So, like, in the Notre Dame has a drive. I think it was the first drive of the second half when Riley Leonard threw the interception. They throw the swing route to Jeremiah Love, and it's there, but Collins completely whiffs the block, and it's a 3-yard loss. And he puts his hand up like, "Hey, I messed that up." And for us, it's like, for me, if you're in film and you don't put your hand up. Like, I don't want you to see you put your hand up. I just want you to do it. Like, don't give me this my bad stuff. Football coaches hate my bad. They hate that. It's like, just do it. I don't want you to tell me that you messed up. Like, don't do that. So he messes that up. And then on the third down play, it's 3rd and 3. And they do a little hook route to him. And he starts his little hook at 3 yards where the line is. Riley Leonard's throwing the ball, and then he drifts backwards, and now he's 5 yards down the field. The pick gets made at 4 yards down the field. Now you're thinking, okay, 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, not a big deal. It's the difference between it being a first down and them intercepting the ball. And, like, as a senior, you cannot do that. You cannot make those mistakes. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, when I watch it, I think this is someone who isn't paying attention to detail, who isn't playing with urgency. And, like, that's unacceptable at this point in the season for what Notre Dame wants to do, for what they want to be. Like, seniors cannot be making those mistakes. If it's Jordan Faison, sophomore lacrosse player, dropping the ball every now and then it's like, okay, you got to stop dropping the ball. But, like, the rest of it, whatever Jordan Faison is doing is 100%. It's full speed. It's with urgency. And I'm not seeing that from Collins, right? And I'm not trying to kill him. I'm not. I'm just saying, like, when I watch the game back, it's just like, man, it sticks out to me. It does. And you can't have this from your seniors. You just can't. That's the bedrock of any good team are the seniors playing the way that they need to play on a down-to-down basis. And if they're not, then your ceiling is not as high as you want it to be. So that's kind of something that I was thinking. Jamie, do you have, kind of thoughts on that?
No, I think that's totally fair. I think that's totally fair because I think we've seen it for a while, right, from him, but I don't want to say it because, Jacob Ball said, Collins is not giving effort or concentration. I could say concentration, I think, feels more of like, I think it's really low what you said about the attention to detail, right? Like that, like that part of it, because, I mean, I see this guy block and he's blocking hard. Like he's like running down the field, trying to block for Love and Price, trying to break something. Like he's sticking on his block. And yeah, he misses the one, whatever. But for the most part, like, I think if you look at all of the receivers, I think that has probably been sneakily the most improved thing on the team, is that the receiver blocking in general has been just like way better, like light years beyond where it was at the beginning of the year. And so he just isn't giving that. And I don't know if it's like a lack of confidence or something, or he's just like expecting bad things to happen, so he's not doing it the right way, whatever. But whatever it is, the dude is in a funk, and it's like, I mean, they're giving him opportunities to
He plays more snaps than anyone else at wide receiver.
He's been targeted way more than anybody else on the team. He leads the team in targets.
Yeah.
He's got 50 targets on the year. And right now, I just wouldn't feel confident at all throwing to him in like a, hey, we need a play.
Mm.
He just hasn't shown that. Right. So in the last couple games, it's not to say that, I mean, they need him to show that. Like, I was thinking actually in this Army game, like I would have in the opening script like a deep ball to Collins, because I'd see right away. I'm like, he's either in it or he's not, and if he's not, I mean, then I'm looking at the next guy. And frankly, too, I know there's a lot of people have like a real kind of, this happens with Notre Dame, but it happens with sports fans in general. A guy plays in small sample sizes and does something good in those sample sizes, and people are like, man, we got to see more Deion Colzie. But there's a reason why Deion Colzie has been deeper down the depth chart for years.
Yeah.
Right. Which is kind of like, it is what it is. But Jaden Thomas, I mean, I definitely don't think athletically he doesn't have the same skill set that Collins has. Like, I bet if, in testing numbers in a combine setting, he wouldn't even probably come close to him. But when I watch Jaden Thomas, all I see is him doing like running the route exactly, running the rub route exactly like he's supposed to, right? Coming back to the football, right? Like just doing those little things like that, always getting a little bit extra after the catch, like, so, and I understand he has not been like a huge impact player, but I don't think, I think you'd agree with me that if it was third down and I'm like, okay, we got to design a play for the boundary because we think we can, get something on the boundary here, I would rather have, Jaden Thomas, if it was just like a little, like I'm running a little like curl route, it would be Jaden Thomas.
We could give a real time situation to this against Louisville on the first drive of the game that they had. They did on a third down. They ran a little out route to Bo Collins and he dropped it. And so then on a fourth down, they put Jaden Thomas in the game and they had him run out and he caught it and they moved on with their day. Like, so it's not what we would rather. That actually happened in a game. And it's like, yeah, Jaden Thomas came through for you, and look at it, Jacob Paulus says it could Colzie just be a gamer. You can't be a gamer as a senior. That's not how it works. You better put it in practice. You've been around too long. You can't be a gamer. You have to do it in practice. I'm sorry. That's the way it works at Notre Dame. That's the way it works at any major college. They're not going to just give you the benefit of the doubt and be like, well, you're a good player. Like, that's not how they're not going to do that, right? Like, you got to do it in practice. You got to do it all the time. Look, Bo Collins, he's played well. He's made big plays. I'm not saying he hasn't, right? I'm not saying that at all. And he can be productive for Notre Dame. Okay. He has been productive for Notre Dame. But like, again, I'm very particular about the way that the seniors play versus the way underclassmen play. I'm very, very particular about this. You're the leaders. Whether you have the C or you don't, you're the leader on the team. You're a senior. It is your responsibility. You have to do everything right. And I'll give you a perfect example. And this is a strength of Xavier Watts. He is never doing the wrong thing. He is always doing it right. And he is always doing it with urgency. He is always ready. He is always where he's supposed to be. Not everything is perfect, but he is just like on it consistently. And that is what you need from your upperclassmen, guys. You have to be doing it right consistently. And it just hasn't been, and so like it's going to cost Notre Dame. This is something that has needed to improve. This is part of the team that we thought could be ascending, and it's not ascending right now. It's getting worse. And so that's not good for Notre Dame's kind of just overall chances.
I will say though, at receiver, if you're looking at in general in the passing offense, I mean, obviously Mitchell Evans has been ascending. Like he
Yes. No, no,
is
no.
that.
Yeah.
So that
I
part
don't
of
want
it
to.
is, yeah. No, you're talking about specifically about Collins at the boundary. Yes.
Yes.
But I'm just saying in terms of like um when people are looking at like somebody sorry who I forgot who mentioned it. Oh, Tyler mentioned about the 3-8 with game on the line. Who you going to? Well,
Mhm.
obviously it's not Collins at this moment, right? um I think really what you're doing right now is that there is no go-to guy. There really isn't, and that's the thing. But I'll tell you what, I mean, Mitchell Evans is somebody that I would feel still like that's a guy I would want to go to, you know?
Mhm.
Um, Jaden Greathouse.
Yeah.
Jaden Greathouse. So I put these numbers up since obviously, hopefully everything's all good with his shoulder. Looked like he could have came back. So that's obviously um, you know, pretty important for them. But since the Louisville game, 15 catches on 18 targets, 16.5 per catch, 4 for 4 on contested catches, 5 missed tackles forced, 137.27 NFL passer rating when targeted. Pretty good.
Yeah.
He's been good. And obviously, he would have got more numbers in this game if he would have stayed in the game, right? And obviously, Jaden Harrison, you look at the last, he's got 3 explosives in the last 2 games. Not even counting the 70 whatever yarder in that game too. That's like an important piece too. But like, I think when you look at it, because if I was going to just say like, who am I going to throw to? It would be Greathouse or Evans.
Mhm.
And would you rather have, a guy that you thought was like Michael Floyd or whatever? Yeah, of course. But like, those guys, I don't think are bad options. And I actually think Jaden Greathouse, the more I watch him too, especially like him after the catch, has been like dynamite, like really,
Mhm.
really, like really impressive. And someone said about moving him to the boundary. I just don't like he hasn't really worked at the boundary all year. And it does seem like they're really kind of finding a good rhythm with him in the slot. And plus, you have Harrison in the slot, like there as like kind of a compliment too. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think you want to mess with a good thing when a guy's like really kind of taking off there. Cause I think that was one of the things too with last year where obviously he had the hamstring, but also he moved out to the boundary. And then all of a sudden it was like, man, Jane Greathouse just kind of disappeared. And it was just like
Yeah.
that. Right. So I don't think you want that. What you really want is just somebody there to give a more level consistency there. And Jordan Faison catch the ball. It's the main thing.
Catch it. Catch it. And like don't don't punish Jaden Greathouse by moving him because it's like Ryan Leonard hasn't thrown to Jaden Greathouse on the boundary.
Yeah.
Like don't weaken your team. Just you
Yeah.
got to challenge your guy. Be like, hey, Bo, like it can't be like this. It needs to be better. It's got to be better. We got to have better on a game to on a play to play basis. He's capable. He can do it.
Yeah.
So go do it, right? And look, this is part of like you go from Clemson, where the last couple of years weren't great. Clemson was not in this situation. Clemson did not have big dreams this late in the year. Notre Dame, they got big dreams now. Notre Dame does, and it's like this is the level that you got to be at. So let's go see it.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell, so whatever it is. We are going to go live. We'll be back on Thursday to preview Army and what we might see there. We had a question about whether or not this would be a game for Osbury and or Snead to play corner. We'll talk about that sort of thing if that's a possibility. I don't think it is, mostly because I think Leonard Morris is a good run player. He defends the run real
Yeah.
well, so we want him out there. So, but we'll talk about all those things, and then whatever comes up on the if there are any surprises with the college football playoff show. So, all right, have a good one, everyone. We'll talk to you on Thursday. Keep hitting and hustling.